opens by introducing the lone rancher as a man shaped by silence, routine, and restraint. Living on a remote stretch of frontier land where the horizon feels wider than his future, he is known in nearby settlements as dependable but distant, a man who speaks little and keeps to himself. Not out of coldness but because solitude has become his shield. Orphaned young and forced into responsibility early, he learned to survive without comfort, believing closeness only invited loss. His days are governed by labor mending fences, tending cattle, watching the sky, and his nights by an emptiness he never names. He has never married, never allowed desire to take root, and has built his identity around discipline and self-denial, quietly convincing himself that a simple life is a safe one. On the day fate intervenes, the land itself seems uneasy. Clouds roll in unnaturally fast, wind howls across the plains, and the animals grow restless. While checking his herd far from home, the storm breaks with sudden violence, rain slashing sideways and thunder cracking so close it rattles his bones. Knowing he cannot make it back to the ranch in time, he rides hard toward the rocky hills, guided more by instinct than sight. The storm strips away his control, forcing him into vulnerability, something he has avoided his entire life. As darkness thickens, he spots the faint outline of a canyon and dismounts, seeking shelter not just from the weather but from the creeping realization that he is no longer fully alone in the world. Inside the shallow cave, he senses movement before he sees it and instinctively reaches for caution rather than his weapon. Two figures emerge from the shadows, two Apache sisters, eyes sharp with fear and defiance, clearly as startled by him as he is by them. In that moment, the storm outside mirrors the tension within the cave. Three lives colliding under circumstances none of them chose. The rancher understands immediately the danger of the situation, not only the risk to himself, but the risk to them, given the unforgiving rules of the frontier. Yet something deeper stirs within him, a pull stronger than fear or prejudice, as he realizes this night will demand more than survival. It will test the values he has lived by, the walls he has built, and the loneliness he has long mistaken for peace, setting the stage for a transformation he could never have imagined. Shifts focus to the two Apache sisters, revealing them not as mysterious figures but as women shaped by endurance, loyalty, and loss, standing at the edge of survival when the rancher stumbles upon them. They have been traveling for days through harsh terrain, guided by necessity rather than choice, after violence fractured their family and left them with no safe place to return to. The elder sister carries herself with fierce composure, her posture protective, every movement deliberate as she places herself subtly between her younger sister and any threat. The younger one, though quieter, watches with keen awareness, her fear tempered by trust in her sister's strength. They are not helpless, but they are exhausted, low on food, soaked from the storm, and hunted not just by soldiers or trackers, but by a world that has little mercy for women alone on the frontier. When the rancher enters the cave, their first instinct is readiness, not panic. They have learned that hesitation can cost lives. Yet they sense immediately that this man is different. His hands remain visible, his voice steady, his gaze respectful rather than demanding. Still, caution governs every breath they take, for promises have betrayed them before. The storm traps them together, leaving no escape without risking death in the open, and the sisters silently agree to endure the night rather than challenge the fury outside. As rain pounds the canyon walls, the sisters communicate in quiet glances and subtle gestures, reinforcing their bond and shared resolve. Their presence brings an unfamiliar tension into the cave, not one of violence, but of guarded coexistence. The elder sister weighs every possibility, whether this man could be trusted, whether dawn would bring danger, whether shelter tonight would mean capture tomorrow. Beneath her resolve lies grief she rarely allows to surface, memories of family lost, and a homeland that no longer offers safety. The younger sister, though frightened, finds herself observing the rancher with curiosity, sensing a gentleness in his restraint that unsettles her expectations. The cave becomes more than shelter. It becomes a fragile crossroads where fear, hope, and survival intersect. As the night deepens, the sisters recognize that this meeting is no accident, but another trial placed before them, one that may alter their path as surely as the storm altered the land. Though words are few, an unspoken understanding forms this: man is not their enemy, at least not tonight. Still, trust is a currency earned slowly, and the sisters remain alert, knowing that survival often depends on reading the intentions of others before they are spoken. In this uneasy stillness too, centers on the fragile truce that forms inside the cave as the storm rages on. binding three strangers together in shared vulnerability. With escape impossible, the rancher slowly lowers his guard, stepping back from the cave entrance to show he does not intend to claim the space or control it. He offers a canteen without moving closer, a simple act that speaks louder than words in a land where kindness is often a trap. The elder sister accepts it cautiously, testing not just the water but his intent, while the younger sister watches every gesture, memorizing the rhythm of his movements. Silence dominates at first, heavy but not hostile, filled only by the roar of rain and the crack of thunder echoing through the canyon. Gradually, necessity forces cooperation. The rancher helps block the wind with his coat, and the sisters allow it. Understanding warmth could mean survival before dawn. No one touches unnecessarily. Respect governs each action, though tension hums beneath the surface. The rancher feels the unfamiliar strain of awareness, not born of desire alone but of proximity after years of isolation. And he wrestles with his own strict moral boundaries, determined not to betray the trust forming in that narrow space. The sisters, in turn, begin to see beyond the silhouette of a frontier man and glimpse someone shaped by restraint rather than dominance. A small fire is coaxed into life, its glow softening the sharp edges of fear and illuminating faces worn by hardship. In the flickering light, the cave becomes less a refuge from the storm and more a shared threshold, where each person measures the others by action rather than words. Time stretches, and with it comes a tentative sense of safety, as though the storm has forced them into an unspoken agreement to protect one another for the night. The rancher listens more than he speaks, sensing that patience is the only language Tras understands. The sisters exchange brief murmurs in their own tongue, not to exclude him, but to reassure each other that, for now, the danger has paused. This uneasy harmony does not erase fear, but it tempers it, allowing humanity to surface where suspicion once ruled. Part 3 closes with the realization that the truce itself is a quiet victory. 3 lives, choosing restraint over fear, cooperation over conflict, laying the emotional groundwork for deeper connections yet to come, unfolds as the storm settles into a steady rhythm, and the cave, warmed by firelight, becomes a place where silence finally gives way to shared stories. The flames cast soft, wavering shadows on the stone walls, and in that gentle glow, the tension eases enough for conversation to begin. Not forced, but tentative, as if each word must first earn its place in the air. The elder sister speaks first, her voice calm but weighted with memory, telling of their people's forced movement, of a home left behind not by choice but by violence, and of the responsibility she carries to keep her sister alive no matter the cost. The younger sister adds fragments, memories of laughter before loss, of learning to read the land, of fear tempered by hope, revealing a quiet resilience that surprises the rancher. When they pause, the rancher feels compelled to speak, not to impress or defend himself, but to explain the solitude that has defined his life. He tells them of a childhood shaped by early loss, of a ranch inherited too young, and of the belief that distance from others was the only way to survive without breaking. He admits that he chose isolation not because he lacked feeling, but because he felt too deeply and feared what closeness might take from him. The sisters listen without judgment, their expressions thoughtful rather than guarded, and in their attention he senses something he has long forgotten: the simple dignity of being heard. As the fire crackles, the cave feels less like a place of hiding, and more like a fragile sanctuary, suspended outside the harsh rules of the frontier. Differences of culture and experience remain, but they are no longer barriers. They are threads in a shared moment of truth. Laughter even surfaces briefly, soft and surprised, breaking through the heaviness like the first star after a storm. In this exchange, the rancher begins to understand that connection does not always demand possession or loss, and the sisters glimpse a man capable of respect rather than harm. Part 4 marks a quiet turning point, where survival gives way to understanding, and the night deepens into something unforgettable, not because of what is taken, but because of what is freely shared. Shifts the tone as danger presses in, testing the fragile peace forged inside the cave, and forcing each of them to reveal who they truly are when fear returns. The storm begins to fade, but the quiet it leaves behind is more unsettling than the thunder, and through it come distant sounds, faint voices, the clink of metal, the unmistakable presence of men moving through the canyon below. The sisters stiffen instantly, their bodies reacting before thought, years of survival sharpening every sense. The elder sister reaches for a hidden blade, her eyes dark with resolve, while the younger sister's fear is tempered by a readiness that betrays how often she has faced such moments before. The rancher understands at once what this means. Whoever is searching nearby is not friendly, and if they are found, the consequences for the sisters will be severe. Instinct urges him towards self-preservation. He could step away, let fate decide, claim ignorance if questioned, but the idea settles in his chest like a betrayal he cannot accept. In that suspended moment, he recognizes that the night has already changed him, that turning away now would hollow him more deeply than any danger ever could. Without speaking, he signals for the sisters to move deeper into the shadows, then steps closer to the cave entrance, positioning himself as a barrier between them and the world outside. He tampers with the fire, reducing its glow, and prepares to answer if confronted, knowing full well the risk he is taking by placing himself in the path of armed men. The sisters watch him with disbelief, edged by dawning trust, realizing this man owes them nothing, yet chooses to stand for them anyway. As footsteps draw nearer and voices echo against stone, time seems too slow, each breath heavy with consequence. The men pass close enough that the rancher can hear their curses and sense their frustration. But they do not see into the cave, and eventually the sounds fade into the distance. When silence finally returns, it is thick with understanding. No declarations are made, no gratitude spoken aloud, but something irrevocable has shifted. Part 5 becomes the moral heart of the story, the moment where honor outweighs fear, and where a lone rancher proves, through action alone, that he is no longer living just for himself. Opens with the pale light of dawn creeping into the cave, revealing a world washed clean by the storm and heavy with unspoken emotion. The rain has passed, leaving the air cool and sharp, and the canyon feels quieter than it did before, as though the land itself is holding its breath. The sisters rise first, moving with practiced efficiency, aware that daylight brings both opportunity and danger. The elder sister checks the canyon below, her posture alert, while the younger one gathers their few belongings, her movements slower, reluctant in a way she does not name. The rancher watches them in silence, feeling the weight of the night settle into him, knowing that what they shared cannot continue as it is. Words feel inadequate, so he offers what he can: directions to safer ground, a portion of his food, and a path that avoids the routes used by patrols. The elder sister accepts with solemn gratitude, meeting his eyes with respect that runs deeper than thanks, while the younger sister hesitates, her gaze lingering as though trying to memorize his face. There is no promise of reunion, no spoken hope, only the quiet understanding that their paths are splitting at a place neither of them expected to reach. As they step into the morning light, the sisters pause, and the elder inclines her head in a gesture of acknowledgement that carries the weight of shared survival. The younger sister offers a small, fleeting smile, gentle, uncertain, and full of meaning, before turning away. The rancher remains in the cave until they disappear from sight, listening to the echo of their footsteps fade into the canyon. When he finally mounts his horse and rides back toward his ranch, the land looks the same, but he does not. The silence he once welcomed now feels empty rather than peaceful, and the routines that once defined him seem strangely hollow. Part 6 closes with the rancher returning to a life that no longer fits, carrying the memory of a single night that has quietly undone the walls he spent years building. Follows the days after the separation, as the rancher struggles to return to his old life, and discovers that the night in the cave has unsettled him more deeply than he expected. He resumes his routines, checking fences, tending cattle, eating alone at his rough wooden table, but each task feels altered, as though the land itself has shifted beneath his feet. Silence, once his chosen companion, now presses against him, filled with remembered voices and firelit shadows he cannot forget. He finds himself scanning the horizon more often, not for danger, but for the impossible hope of seeing two familiar figures moving across the plains. Sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by dreams of storm and fire, and eyes watching him with quiet trust. Gradually, he begins to question the life he has built, realizing that solitude was never the same as peace, only a way to avoid risking loss. The frontier, harsh and unforgiving, suddenly feels too narrow for a man who has tasted connection and chosen honor over fear. Fate answers his unrest sooner than expected when rumors reach him of Apache women being tracked near the river, captured, or worse if found. The unease in his chest hardens into resolve, and he understands that walking away now would erase everything the night stood for. Gathering supplies and mounting his horse, he rides out not as a man chasing redemption, but as one answering a responsibility he has willingly claimed. When he finally finds signs of struggle near the water-broken branches, hurried footprints, he knows with certainty that the sisters are in danger. In that moment, hesitation disappears, replaced by a clarity he has never known. The rancher realizes that the night of shelter was not an isolated miracle. but a turning point, one that has bound his fate to theirs. Part 7 marks his transformation from observer to participant, from a man defined by isolation to one driven by purpose, as he chooses to step fully into a future shaped by courage, connection, and the willingness to protect what he now knows matters most. Brings the story to its quiet resolution, where the consequences of choice unfold not in grand gestures, but in the steady shaping of a new life. The rancher finds the sisters before harm can claim them, not through violence alone but through resolve, negotiation, and the reputation he is willing to risk to protect them. By standing between them and those who would take advantage, he crosses a line he can never retreat from, yet he does so without regret. Safety does not come instantly. It is built through careful decisions, hidden paths, and the willingness to trust one another beyond a single night. Over time, the sisters come to his land not as fugitives, but as equals, bringing knowledge of the land, strength of spirit, and a sense of belonging the rancher never knew he lacked. The elder sister remains a guardian at heart, helping shape a place where survival does not require constant fear, while the younger sister's presence grows into something tender and profound, rooted in respect rather than urgency. The rancher, once defined by solitude, learns the rhythm of shared days' work divided, meals spoken over, laughter returning in unexpected moments. Love, when it comes, is not sudden or acclaimed, but chosen slowly, built on trust, earned through action. The frontier does not soften, nor does the world become just, but within the boundaries of their shared life, something rare takes hold: dignity, safety, and connection. Part 8 closes with the rancher standing at the edge of his land, at sunset no longer alone. Understanding that one night of shelter did not merely change his path, it revealed who he was capable of becoming and gave him a future shaped not by fear but by belonging.